I'm pleased that the Subcommittee on Border Maritime Security is meeting today to discuss the Coast Guard's Homeland Security missions in the post-9/11 era. A little over a year ago, I visited the Coast Guard headquarters and met with the previous Commandant, Admiral Todd Allen. We had a good discussion about the role of the Coast Guard in securing our nation, both the northern, the southern, and the coast area also. I appreciate Admiral Papp joining us today to update the subcommittee on the Coast Guard's efforts in support of the Departments of Homeland Security. As a member of Congress representing district along the southern border, I'm particularly interested in the Coast Guard's work on three matters related to that region of the country. First, I've been working to support the U.S. Customs Border Protection Office of Air and Marine's efforts to deploy unmanned aerial systems, UASs, along our land and coastal borders. It is my understanding the Coast Guard is working with CBP on the maritime variant of the UAS. I hope to hear from Admiral Papp about the Coast Guard's work with the CBP Air and Marine on this program, as well as what work it may be doing along with their colleagues in the U.S. Navy. Given limited federal resources, agencies across the government should do everything possible to share information, technology as appropriate, and avoid the duplication of efforts in order to secure our country as effectively and efficiently as possible. Second, as many of you know, there's been troubling incidents of violence on the Mexican side of Falcon Lake, the U.S. portion which is located in my congressional district. The FY 2012 DHS appropriation bill recently passed by the House of Representatives this last week recommends that the Coast Guards have an enhanced presence on Falcon Lake and Lake Amistad in order to counter border incursions at that time. And I believe, as a witness testified, you also testified, Admiral, that you also feel that there should be an increased presence on all that, and we'll follow up on some questions on that. It is my understanding that this area is currently patrolled only by CBP, which is also stretched thin with its border security responsibilities. I'm interested in knowing from the Commandant what presence beyond, quote, pulse operations, which we know it's just a low touch, of Coast Guard currently has along the southern border of the U.S. and how it would intend to fulfill the language in the appropriations bill should it become law. Third, last week the Texas Rangers, U.S. Border Patrol, Texas Fish and Wildlife were involved in a shootout across the Rio Grande near Abraham, Texas. Suspected drug runners shot across the river from Mexico at U.S. law enforcement officials. Last year, Coast Guard's Authorizations Act of 2010, now which is Public Law 111281, included a provision that I authored in which the Coast Guard shall prepare a mission requirement analysis for the navigable portions of Rio Grande. This analysis was due to Congress no later than 90 days after the date of enactment, which was October 15 of 2010. And out of courtesy to the Commandant, we contacted your congressional affairs persons just to give you a heads up that I was going to be asking you why y'all missed this particular deadline, which is statute, and it was specifically directed at your office. Specifically, this provision calls that the mission requirement analysis is meant to assess Coast Guard's missions, assets, personnel assigned the Rio Grande River. As you know, the Rio Grande is international waters. Might not be blue waters, as I think some of you folks call it the brown waters, but nevertheless, international. It's an international waters. Included with the analysis or requirement to identify what would be needed for Coast Guard to increase the operations, migrant interdiction operation, drug interdiction operations, everything within your 11 points of your mission itself. I hope to hear from Admiral Papp about the status of this analysis, or if you haven't gotten started, just tell us that you're going to get started on it. And ultimately, we're talking about narcotics, undocumented aliens, and those who might wish to do us harm. We know that people will take the route that they perceive to offer the best opportunity to enter the country. If we secure the land borders, people will try to come across maritime borders and vice versa. We are only as strong as our weakest link, which is why it's imperative that we support the work of the Coast Guard and the sister agencies within DHS. In closing, I would like to note that more than 40,000 active duty members of the Coast Guard, supported by thousands more reservists and civilians, do our country proud every day. We thank you for that work that you all do, Commandant. We thank them, their families, for the service to our country. And again, I appreciate Admiral Papp for joining us here today. Look forward to your testimony, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I yield back the balance of my time.